You know, we've already made this video. We've gone out there and had our conversations about this player, talking about how good he is, etc., etc. But with the season coming to a close, I feel like now is as better time as ever to go out there and talk about this guy one more time. Because when it comes to the development, the progression, the story here, and of course, you know, we're talking about Jared McCann on the Seattle Kraken today, I feel like now, more than ever, he has the right to go out there and laugh in the faces of 3 NHL teams that essentially gave up on the guy. Okay, do we want to say 3? Maybe 4 even. So, let's talk about Jared McCann this season because the year has wrapped up. The guy had 79 games played, he had 70 points, and he was a 40-goal guy. Yeah, Jared McCann's a 40-goal player now in the National Hockey League, and it's kind of funny because for a lot of Canucks fans, this is sort of what we wanted him to be. I know it's been another Canucks video after Canucks-related video, but this one isn't really all Canucks. It's also Toronto, Pittsburgh, and Florida as well, but either way, when Jared McCann was drafted by the Canucks back in 14, excuse me, in the 24th overall spot, that was the first-round pick the Canucks gathered in the Ryan Kesler trade with the Anaheim Ducks. A lot of Canucks fans thought that if Jared McCann could eventually become that two-way center in that Ryan Kesler-esque mold, you were getting yourselves a win. And that wasn't a scouting report that a lot of Canucks fans had per se, it's just kind of what Jared McCann himself said that he modeled his game after. I remember there was like a season ticket holders press conference in Rogers Arena in 2015 or whatever it was, and Jared McCann said that he models his game after Kesler, and the Canucks fans were all booing because at that time Kesler still had a lot of heat with the fan base. But either way, Jared McCann was seen as this guy that if he panned out, he could become a two-way center, he had goal-scoring potential, he had a really good shot, and if everything went right, he would be a solid middle-to-top-6 caliber guy. It's just, with Vancouver, you never really saw that manifest because, yeah, surprise, surprise, Jim Benning traded McCann away for Erik Goodbranson, and that was always seen as a terrible move by the franchise based off of how McCann was projecting to be as his career would go on. When the Canucks traded McCann to the Panthers, it was 2016-17, so the guy was literally, how old was he? 20 years old? Erik Goodbranson was older, not significantly older, but older enough to the point that it actually made a difference, and he wasn't a high-flying goal-scoring forward. He was a shutdown defenseman, big dude, leadership caliber guy, and long story short, Erik Goodbranson became a meme in the Canucks fan base because he was a very bad defenseman. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, Erik Goodbranson was not good here. Meanwhile, you had Jared McCann go over to the Florida Panthers after being given up on by one NHL team and post up a 28-point in 68-game season. Eventually, the season after that, he had gotten traded from the Panthers to the Pittsburgh Penguins in a deal where the Penguins were loading up. They had gotten McCann, they also got Bjugstad in the same trade, and in return, the Panthers received Brassard, they got, I believe it was Sheahan and a whole bunch of draft picks, so pretty much a load-em-up type of move for the Pittsburgh Penguins heading into the 2019 playoffs. Now, unfortunately for McCann, he only played 3 games, had 1 assist, didn't really do too much for the team in that stint. And the next few seasons saw McCann stay with Pittsburgh. He was actually improving his point production little by little as the years went on. 35 points in 66 games played in 2019-20, 32 points in 43 games in 2020-2021. But with all the conversations going on about this guy and his contract, he would need an extension here and there, he was only signed to short-term deals, there were a few decisions that needed to be made by the Penguins, and long story short, just to sum it all up in a few words, the Pittsburgh Penguins chose to keep Jeff Carter over Jared McCann. Now, there are some other factors that go into that conversation. Oh, it's the expansion draft, it's the protecting of the players, who's available, who's not, etc., etc. Long story short, it's just that. The Penguins decided to keep Carter over McCann. And in order to not lose out on McCann for nothing, they traded McCann to the Toronto Maple Leafs in exchange for Philip Hallander and a 7th. Essentially saying, okay, we know we're going to lose our guy, but we don't want to lose him for free. So here, Toronto, you can take him. Jared McCann is technically a Toronto Maple Leaf now. He was under a point per game. And with the Maple Leafs having their own expansion draft situation too, they ended up exposing McCann. It was sort of a ploy that a lot of people said was there so that the Kraken wouldn't take Kerfoot. But then when you think about it, it's like, okay, what kind of deal was that for the Toronto Maple Leafs? They had themselves the opportunity to get somebody like McCann in the first place, only for the Kraken to take him. It's almost like the Leafs said, okay, here, we want to keep Kerfoot, so we'll pay up Philip Hallander and a 7th in order to get a player that the Kraken will take instead of Kerfoot. It's just kind of weird now because Jared McCann is a 40-goal guy. He has become all that Vancouver wanted him to be, all that Pittsburgh saw that he was becoming. He had 50 points in 74 games last year, 70 points in 79 games this year. So he really went out there and boosted up his overall playing ability in the past 2 seasons worth of play. The guy's 26 years old now, signed to a $5 million AAV deal till the end of 2027, and I don't know about you, but if a $5 million player is going out there getting 40 goals and 70 points year in and year out, then I think that's a pretty good deal, especially for a player who is 26 years old. Jared McCann has become all and more for the Kraken, and at this point, he has the right, as I said, to go out there and say, Vancouver, you gave up on me? You went out there and traded me for Goodbranson? You thought that I would not become what I am today? Okay, great. You've got Florida, who, look, the Panthers were in a pretty interesting spot back when they traded McCann to the Penguins. It wasn't really the super powerhouse that we know they are today back then, so I can give them a little bit of a pass, but at the same time, the Penguins going out there and saying, yeah, no, we're going to keep Carter. That was a mistake. And then you have the Toronto Maple Leafs that had an opportunity to maybe make something or two happen that allowed them to keep a guy that would eventually get 70 points. Look, everybody talks about the Maple Leafs and their cap situation. I don't know about you, but getting a guy who can produce this much at this dollar amount probably helps out your cap situation. Just saying. Of course, this conversation is all happening with the benefit of hindsight, that in which was not available to all of these teams back when they were trading McCann away or letting him go to Seattle and stuff like that. But I guess the biggest fault here comes at the hands of Jim Benning once more. It's always Jim Benning. It always goes back to him. Because for this guy to go out there and trade McCann away for Eric Goodbranson back in the day, in probably the most defining example of the win-now type mentality that Francesco Aquilini seems to have enforced onto this team the past few years, it kind of goes to show just how good it can get if you just wait. If you just be patient a little bit. Imagine McCann with Pettersson. They were only drafted 3 years apart. They're still in the same age range. So had the Vancouver Canucks kept McCann, of course, it's not guaranteed that he would have been as good as he is today with Seattle. It's not. Maybe you could say the trades to Florida, to Pittsburgh, to Toronto, and then getting picked up by Seattle, that's character-building experience right there for the guy. Maybe that's the case. Who really knows? But at the end of the day, Jared McCann has become the one that got away for most of these teams, and it's kind of hilarious when you acknowledge how good he has been ever since signing the deal with the Seattle Kraken and becoming a part of that organization. Thoughts in the comment section below about Jared McCann and the way he's progressed throughout his career. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.